Hey there folks, Tim Slade here from the eLearning Designers Academy. If there is one mistake that I see a lot of new and aspiring instructional designers make when building their portfolios is that they're not thoughtful about the types of work they're choosing to showcase in their portfolios. Too often I see folks treat their portfolios as some sort of repository, a bucket to showcase everything they've ever done and everything that they're capable of doing with this hopes that it's going to show this broad range of skill set, right? But you know what that really does? It ultimately just results in a really confusing, low quality, I can't even call it a collection, a mess of work that doesn't actually do a good job of demonstrating good instructional design. And you know what? You usually see this when people are following bad advice. They follow advice from the furus, the fit gurus, who have either never worked in this industry before or as a hiring manager before, but somehow people have convinced themselves that they're the most qualified people to tell you what hiring managers are looking for in this industry. They're not. And then this is how you end up with those portfolios that all look the same, that I know we have all seen before. The poorly designed storyline project on something ridiculous like how to breed goldfish. I'm not joking. Or the Rise project that's full of nothing but text. Or the Beyond project that's, looks like every other Beyond project. Or worse, the one that makes me die inside every time I see it, the job aid, created in Canva, covering the 5 steps of the ADDIE process. So today, in this video, what I want to do is walk you through how to pick and craft a topic for your portfolio. That way, you end up building something that actually appeals to what hiring managers are looking for and helps you do a good job of demonstrating your skills as an instructional designer, not just somebody who can use a bunch of tools. Now, before we dive into it, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and bell button to get alerted the next time I publish a video just like this one. And of course, join us inside the eLearning Designers Academy and our free community at elearningacademy.io or with the link down in the description. Let's dive into it. Okay, now before we get into how to pick your own topics for your portfolio projects, the first thing that I think we need to straighten out is what exactly is a hiring manager looking for in a portfolio? And I want to be really clear here. When I say portfolio, I'm not talking about the design of your website. I'm talking about the actual work you put in it. Because as I've said before, and I'm going to say again, a portfolio does not equal a website. A portfolio is a collection of work. So, what is the hiring manager looking for in your collection of work? Is it that you showcase that you can use a specific tool? Is it how pretty your projects are? Is it about being focused on a specific industry topic? I mean, here's the thing. Earlier this year, we published our 2025 State of the Industry report, where we asked over 600 L&D practitioners and hiring managers this exact question. What are you really looking for in a portfolio? And the results were telling, but not surprising. First, portfolios matter a lot. 2/3 of hiring managers said portfolios or work samples were highly important when evaluating candidates, and a full 1/3 said they were extremely important. And yet, when we asked how many candidates actually show up with a portfolio, the answer was only about 50%. So half of people aren't even bringing a portfolio to the table, which means if you are, you're already ahead of the curve. But here's the part I really want you to hear. Really, I want you to hear it. Hiring managers told us over and over again that the best portfolios aren't just flashy projects or pretty websites. They want to see how you think, how you solve problems, and the process behind your design decisions. In other words, they want to see substance over style. And you know what? I think Heidi Curry did the best job summing it all up in our report. She said, too many job seekers build portfolios based on social media trends. That's where the furus come in, instead of what hiring managers actually want. A strong portfolio should showcase a range of project types, clearly explain your process, and show how learning impact was or could be measured. Flashy visuals don't set you apart. Showing how you build effective learning does. And this just reinforces my point. There is no universal checklist for what to include in a portfolio. And here's the thing I want you to know. Every hiring manager is different. Every team is different. And every role is different. So instead of trying to tick off some imaginary list, focus on building projects that are both specific in scope and intentional in design and reflect the actual work you want to do in this industry. All right, so now that we have that all out of the way, let's get to the heart of it all. How do you pick a topic for a portfolio project? Well, the big mistake that I think most people make, or the big assumption I think most people make when crafting their own project topics, is that they assume somehow they're going to earn brownie points for how creative or unique their project topic is. And you know what? Despite what you might have heard or what you might believe, it's not really the topic that's important or what matters most to hiring managers. Instead, it's the story, the situation, the problem, the audience, the context, and the design decisions that go into and surrounds your topic that matters the most. And the reason why this is that these elements help you create constraints. And when it comes to developing your own projects for your portfolio, constraints are your best friend because they force you to design something with purpose and meaning. And they enable you to create something that'll actually help a hiring manager or a client evaluate your skill set, thinking, and judgment as an instructional designer. So the next question is, how do you create these constraints for your portfolio projects? Well, it's really just two things. You want to craft a project that's specific in scope and intentional in design. These are the elements that help you move from picking random topics and building random samples of work and shift you towards making intentional design decisions within the context and framework of how instructional designers actually work in the real world. So let's start with what I mean when we say our project needs to be specific in scope. When you're creating a sample project for your portfolio, a focus topic is always going to be a strong topic. And what makes it strong is when you've defined some clear constraints, a specific audience, a specific problem, a specific setting, and specific outcomes. These constraints force you to design something that feels like it came out of the real world, not just something that you made up on a Sunday afternoon with no context. And trust me, hiring managers can always tell the difference. All right, so let's walk through each one at a time, starting with specific audience. Now, everything starts with who you're designing for. Knowing your audience shapes every part of your solution, the tone, the visuals, the examples you use, and even the delivery methods. Who is this learning for and why do they need it? What's their job role or level of experience? What do they already know or maybe need to unlearn? And why would this training even matter to them? So let me give you an example. Let's say we wanted to create a project for retail employees. One way we might frame our audience is, this training is for employees who interact with customers? I mean, it's super broad, right? It doesn't give much context. A much stronger version would be, this project is designed for new retail associates during their first 30 days on the job. Notice how that feels more grounded in reality. It paints a clearer picture of who this training is for, where they're at in their journey, and maybe what they need or why they need it. Next, we need a specific problem. Instructional design isn't just about delivering information for the sake of information. It's about solving real-world workplace problems, business problems. So, what behaviors or performance issue is your training addressing? What's not working and why is it not working? Is this a behavior or skill gap or just a knowledge gap? And what's the cost or consequence of doing nothing? Now, if we go back to our retail example, you could frame the problem as, the goal is to help with communication and being more professional? Well, that's vague. It's not clear on what the issue actually is. A more specific version would be, associates are mishandling product returns, which is causing customer frustration and inventory errors. Now, that's something we can design training for. It's specific, it's observable, and it gives your project a clear purpose. All right, third, we need a specific setting. Context matters. The setting shapes how learners experience training and what constraints you have to work with. Ask yourself, where and when will this performance issue happen? Where and how will the learning take place? Is it remote, in-person, or hybrid? What tools or time constraints exist? Is this part of onboarding, compliance, ongoing skills development? These are all questions you have to be able to answer. So let's keep going with our retail example. You might frame it as, it can be taken online whenever it fits into someone's schedule. Well, that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Instead, we might say the setting is a busy retail store during the holiday season. Learners can access the training on tablets in the break room during short breaks. Now, that paints a much clearer picture. It tells us what the environment is like, what challenges learners might face, and how they'll actually take the training. All right, Fourth, we need specific outcomes. Clear, observable outcomes show that you're not just designing for knowledge transfer, you're designing for behavior change. What should learners be able to do after the training is complete? What decisions or actions should change? How does this outcome support the business? Can this be measured and observed in the real world? So again, let's go back to our retail example. You could say after completing this training, learners will have a better understanding of how to talk to customers? Well, that's a little fuzzy. You can't really measure better understanding. A stronger version would be learners will be able to process a return correctly and confidently de-escalate customer concerns using the company's 3-step model. Now, do you see the difference there? The second one is clear, specific, and tied to performance, something a hiring manager can instantly recognize as solid instructional design. So when you put it all together, a specific audience, specific problem, specific setting, and specific outcomes, you're showing a hiring manager that you're not just making random training. You're demonstrating that you know how to design for impact, not just output. All right, so once your project is scoped and focused, it's time to actually build it. And here's the thing, a strong showcase project isn't just thrown together. It's intentional in every way, from the format you choose, to the tools you use, to the way you structure and present the content. Every decision should be on purpose. And this is where you showcase that you're not just creating something that works, you're creating something that works for a reason. So let's break down what this actually looks like. First, intentional modality. Now, not every problem requires a course. That's like Instructional Design 101. So choosing the right delivery method, whether it's an e-learning module, a quick job aid, a video, or even a live session, shows that you understand how format impacts usability and outcomes. So ask yourself, why did I choose this delivery method? Does this format match how and where learners will use the training? Is this the most efficient and effective way to solve the problem? Now, let's go back to our retail associate example. This could be framed as this training is delivered as a 45-minute e-learning course. I mean, that's a long time for someone who's working on a sales floor, juggling customers, and barely has a 10-minute break. Now, a much more thoughtful and intentional version would be a short e-learning module was chosen because associates don't have time for classroom training during shifts. See the difference? One is designed around the content, the other is designed around the learner's reality. Next, intentional tool choice. Now, let's talk about tools. Your tool should fit the need, not the other way around. Choosing the right tool shows you're thinking about the learner experience, technical constraints, and what's actually required. So ask yourself, why did I choose this tool? Does it fit the learning context and technical environment? Does it support the right level of interaction and accessibility? So for example, you might say, the course was built in Storyline to make it look interactive and modern. Well, that may be true, but it's not really a reason. That's just following a trend. A better version would be Rise 360 was used to make the course mobile friendly and quick to update for seasonal changes. Now, that's intentional. That shows you're thinking about context and longevity, not just fancy buttons. All right, third, we have intentional design decisions, and this is where your instructional design chops are really going to shine. A project isn't just about putting content onto slides. It's about how you structure the experience so learners actually understand and retain and apply what you've learned. Without intentional design, your training just becomes a content dump. So with intentional design, it feels purposeful and engaging and effective. This also means thinking about adult learning principles. Adults want learning that's relevant, practical, and immediately applicable. And hiring managers want to know that you can incorporate these things into the design of your projects. If your design doesn't reflect that, and it's just a wall of information, you're not showing instructional design, you're really just showing content creation and tool use. So, how's the content sequenced and scaffolded? Are your interactions tied to real decisions learners need to make on the job? How are you applying adult learning principles like relevance and self-direction and problem solving? And how are you reducing cognitive overload by chunking content logically? So let's go back to our retail example. One option might be learners click through tabs and buttons to read chunks of information in no particular order. Well, that's just an information dump. A stronger version would be the design includes short, scenario-based interactions that simulate real customer conversations, each lasting no more than 5 minutes, and build in complexity. That's instructional design in action. It's purposeful, it's engaging, and it's tied to real-world performance. All right, fourth and finally, we have intentional quality and polish. I'm going to say it, details matter a lot. A project with typos and clashing fonts or missing alt text can completely overshadow your otherwise great instructional design thinking. So you have to ask yourself, are the layouts, fonts, and colors consistent and professional? Is the writing clear, natural, and free of errors? Did I build with accessibility in mind, like alt text, closed captioning, and everything else? For example, you might say, the project uses a mix of stock photos, fonts, and bright colors to keep it fun. Yeah, that's not fun for a hiring manager. It just feels messy. So a stronger version would be the module follows brand guidelines, includes alt text, accessible color contrast, and is professionally written and formatted. You see the difference? One looks like a student project and the other one looks like work you'd be proud to show to a hiring manager. So when you design with intentionality, whether it's in the modality and the tools and the design decisions or the polish, you're showing that you don't just build content for the sake of it, you build with purpose. And that's exactly the kind of thinking hiring managers want to see. All right. So that's what it means to design a project topic that is both specific in scope and intentional in design. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, gosh, Tim, do I really need to spend all of this time coming up with all of these hypothetical details? Why can't I just pick something, a random topic? Well, the truth is, yeah, it takes a little extra time and effort and energy, but that's actually kind of the whole point. Those details create the constraints you have to design around, and that's what turns a random project into a real instructional design solution. But it's not just the constraints. So if you remember from our 2025 State of the Industry report, hiring managers told us it's not enough to simply showcase finished projects. Portfolios should reveal the designer's thinking, process, and decisions as an instructional designer. And that means they don't just want to see your shiny final project on a random topic. They want to understand what led you to it. And that's where these details come in. They become the raw materials for your case study, the story you'll use when you write up your project in your portfolio. These are the details that show how you thought through the problem, what decisions you made, and how you exercised your judgment as an instructional designer, not just how well you know how to use a particular authoring tool. Now, I know that drafting all of this from scratch can feel like a lot, especially when you're learning everything else at the same time. So to make it easier, I created a free case study template that literally walks you through each one of these elements: the audience, the problem, the setting, the outcomes, and more. And think of it kind of like a Mad Libs for instructional design project topics. You just fill in the blanks and suddenly you've got a grounded project with a real story behind it. So if you want to try this out for yourself, I've made the case study available totally for free, which you can use with the link down below. Use it as a guide the next time you're crafting a project for your portfolio. And I promise it'll help you create something much more grounded and intentional. Now, here's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, I know that when you're new to instructional design, coming up with all of these details and constraints on their own can feel really overwhelming, especially when you're also trying to learn tools and theories and everything else at the same time. And that's exactly why we created our monthly challenges inside the eLearning Designers Academy and our free community. They're completely free, and every month we publish a new challenge that gives you everything you would need to get started: a case study and prompt based on a real workplace performance issue, clear learning objectives and design constraints, and we even throw in ideas for interactivity and content presentation, plus a hypothetical company style guide so you can align your solution to that company's brand standards. And the goal with our monthly challenges are simple: to help you put your skills into practice, build real projects for your portfolio, and get feedback along the way. And here's the fun part. We review all of the submissions and we pick a winner every month, and we give away a $100 Amazon gift card. And most months, you can build your solution in whatever tool you'd like, whether it's Storyline or Rise or Parda or Camtasia or Vyond or whatever tool you want. It's not about the tool. It's about practicing your craft and building projects that you can showcase in your portfolio. All right, so there you have it. When you combine projects that are specific in scope with projects that are intentional in design, you move beyond just showing off tools. You actually are starting to show hiring managers how you think as an instructional designer. And honestly, that's the secret sauce, because at the end of the day, flashy buttons or trendy animations or confusing JavaScript is not the stuff that's going to land you a job, but demonstrating that you can define a problem and design within constraints and craft a meaningful solution absolutely will. Now, I'd love to know what you think. If you were to design your next portfolio project, what's one detail you'd make sure to define first? Your audience, the problem, the setting, or the outcomes? Drop your thoughts, tips, and questions down in the comments. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and bell button to get alerted the next time I publish a video just like this one. And of course, join us inside the eLearning Designers Academy and our free community at elearningacademy.io, where we help new instructional designers and e-learning developers grow their careers by focusing on skills first. Otherwise, my name is Tim Slade, and until next time, I'll see you around.